The following is a production of Salt and Light Radio in Boise, Idaho. Kick off your work boots and pull up a boulder. It's time for Man Cave, discussing the issues that affect Catholic men in today's culture. Grab your favorite beverage, pick out a comfy spot around the campfire, and enjoy today's conversation with our two favorite cavemen, Pat King and Brian Howell.
Welcome to the show. I'm Pat King.
And I'm Brian Howell. I'm back in the man cave.
Well, I found him. It was panhandling out there. He was looking for work. And, so, no, it's on the way to the studio. Look what I found. We brought him back for a reprieve.
That's funny. That's funny. So what is our discussion today going to be about?
I don't know. I thought you had the topic.
Oh, rats. No. We're going to talk about last Sunday's readings where Jesus kind of is setting the world on fire and causing all kinds of discourse.
Scared the heck out of me. It's like...
Well, I mean, we always think of Kumbaya hippie Jesus. Sometimes we forget about the times where he's kicking over tables and he's setting houses against each other.
They've got this soft image of Jesus. Yeah. He was not really a man. And let me tell you something. He was a carpenter. And he had to use, so I'm a carpenter of a sort, but I've got these little things called tools that go, me, and all like cuts everything. Right. I mean, when I'm doing the sawing, my arm's just like, but that's all Jesus could do was cut everything by hand. He had to shape everything by hand, pulling all that, I mean, using those hand tools. If you've ever done any woodwork with hands, by hand, using hand tools, let me tell you, you know you've got calluses, your arms hurt. I mean, it's a really muscle-bearing thing, and it takes a lot of endurance to make all that by hand, all the furniture, and then lifting the big wood and then bringing it down to size to fit the furniture or whatever you're making. So he was a real man, and so everyone thinks, like you said, kumbaya, love is in the air and all that stuff. And, you know, he did have that softness to him because it was love. It was all about love. But sometimes you need, what do they call that? Love by, when you're...
Tough love.
Tough love.
Need some tough love.
And Scared Straight. I've seen those. I think that was a documentary or a series called Scared Straight where you got these young hoodlums, juvenile delinquents causing problems. Not quite there where they're causing big problems, but they're at the point where the parents don't know what to do with them. The judicial system doesn't know what to do with them. You can't put them in adult penitentiaries or prisons or jails. So they would take them to see prisoners, hardened prisoners, and that have kind of changed their lives around. They've been in jail a long time. And they try to tell the kids through being mean and scary looking and
tough love.
And that tough love. And my mom, whenever I got spanked a lot, let me tell you. I'm the middle child of 7, and my mom used spanking. I mean, that was a common method back then. And you know what? I never thought she was abusing me because she always softened it. This is going to hurt me more than you. Now, my butt by back end would bear to differ with her, but and now as an adult with children, I understand what she means by that because she really didn't want to punish me. She didn't want to make me feel that she was angry or hated me by punishing me, but she was trying to correct my path from going down the path I was going. And probably the worst thing that could have happened, which ends up being the best thing, was I was at that age, I was 11, I was hanging around a gang of guys. We weren't really a gang, but, the kids from school, You're all walking home. You kind of find ways to get into trouble because you're walking home. And we were starting to do things like I remember this Chinese cafe or restaurant we'd go in and they'd have the bowl of fortune cookies and we'd go in and grab a bunch of them and run out the door. Why?
Because they were there.
They were there. And got to the point where they would actually give us the broken ones and said, don't steal my good ones. Here, we'll give you the broken. So, I mean, they found a way to keep us from stealing. They just gave us the broken ones. And it was, something we won a victory. But I know from the group of kids I was hanging around with that, my parents were in the verge of a divorce. Now, when you're young, you really don't follow, you don't really understand that, the divorce thing. They know they're mad, they're not around. My dad was a traveling salesman, so he's gone a lot anyway. And so it wasn't something they talked about, like, oh, we're going to think about getting a divorce. They didn't have marriage counseling a lot of time. So my mom grabbed us at the end of the school year, it was 5th grade for me, and my younger siblings, 3 younger ones below me, and dragged us off into Idaho. School was out, and boy, we had our bags packed, and she was in the car, and we were gone. And I was very angry, hated it, but that move, which I despised at the time, as I lived my life, and that's why you never know the outcome of things. And Eddie and I had this conversation a week or so ago about resiliency. Well, yeah, sometimes you are, sometimes you're not. I hate using that word because it destroyed my life for a long time. I didn't see the benefits of that separation and move, and it wasn't so much from my father as from the area that we lived in. We lived in Whittier, which is L.A., part of L.A., metropolis and metropolitan area, and there was a lot of people, and you kind of got lost in the shuffle. So a lot of kids resort to doing things mischievously as a way to stand out, get noticed. And so that was a summer I end up, because I couldn't play ball or anything. It was the summer that I spent time at my grandparents' house. And kids in general, so the topic is correction. Can we handle correction? And now, I was taught to respect my elders. And my grandparents were very patient. We're the grandkids now, so a little different than our own children.
Right.
But they still had their firm beliefs and consequences for misbehaving and not doing what you're told to do. And they grew up in the Depression. They lived in the Depression, and so their belief was that if you don't work, you don't eat. But my grandparents were very patient, and there's a lot of stories I can tell about that. But they had no problem correcting me because I was in their house under their roof eating their food. And I was there for the summer, and I was going to behave like they would expect.
Right.
So they had high expectations of us. Jesus has high expectations of you, but he's not really there to slap you on the wrist or spank your bottom or tell you stop it unless you're reading the Bible, unless you're reading the masses, the readings of the mass and stuff like that. And so last week's message, the 20th Sunday, I don't want to say last week because it'll be in a couple weeks, the 20th Sunday of the year of Ordinary Time was talking about correction, and if you don't know what this is, if you don't have one already, we talked about it on the radio show today, is the St. Joseph's Sunday Missal, and in it is got all the readings of the Ordinary Time. Yes, A, B, and C of the liturgical years, and last Sunday's theme, they have a theme on there and a message to tell you what the Mass is going to be about, what the readings will be about. Can we stand correction? And I thought it was fitting to bring it up because, Brian, you don't like being corrected, do you?
Well, I am married, so it's kind of a daily occurrence.
So you have to be corrected. That should be part of the vows.
Well,
and stand to be corrected.
I asked my wife, it's like, really, honey, you need to embrace your mistakes. And so she gave me a hug.
Often. That's why you get a daily hug, right?
Yeah.
Don't leave. I got to hug you first.
Yeah, I got to embrace my mistakes. But no, I mean, as men, I don't think we like to be... because I guess it kind of hurts our manhood or something like that if we're corrected or if a mistake that we make is pointed out. It makes us feel, lesser than we should be. I don't know.
We grow up, there's a mystique to manhood, and I think most men feel like this. If you're not corrected off, I was corrected a lot. Mm-hmm. Being the middle child, I got corrected by the older kids, and I couldn't do anything about the younger kids, and so they just laughed at me. And then I got it from Mom, So I was kind of like,
And then your grandparents.
And then my grandparents. So, but men, I think, when men are striving for perfection, they either find a skill and become very good at baseball. I was very good at baseball. But I grew up with coaches all my life. Mm-hmm. So for me, being corrected by a coach or someone, like if I love baseball. So if a Major League Baseball player came and saw me play and said, hey, you should do these things, I would like, okay, thank you.
Yeah,
yes, I will.
Right.
But I'm also a landscaper, and I've owned my own business. I've been in business for 30 years. I got 40 years experience in it. And the last thing I want someone to do is someone who's picked up a rake for the first time tell me how to do something. Because I've got the experience. You're just a punk kid. What do you know? I had this one guy that worked for me for years, was annoying as all get out. And every time I tried to tell him I wanted something done, he had another way to go about doing it. It got to the point where it says, okay, I'll tell you what. You do it the way you want, but you own up to it. If it goes bad, doesn't work out, costs me more money, or it's not what the customer wants, you have to fix it on your own time. And I found that was the best way to correct him without being angered by his constant annoying attempt to change what I'm wanting done. So there's ways to work around it, but I know my business, and it's hard to take correction from it.
Well, I think sometimes too that, like you said, you have a certain way of doing things, and then somebody wants to change that, and you're a little apprehensive about doing that. And we learn from experience. But I mean, when you were growing up, how many times did your grandfather maybe try to give you some sage wisdom? You know, because I've lived it. And I find this with my kids now as well, whether it's the 30-year-old twins or the teenager that's living at home. I'm 54 years old. I've gone through the school of hard knocks. I'm trying to save you from making mistakes or save you from having to experience that pain. But I'm just an idiot. I'm going to go out and do it my own way, and that's sometimes how people learn is making their own mistakes and having to pay the consequences.
So, Brian, your mom was a smart woman. I mean, you know, and I mean, most moms are smart.
Right.
You'd have to be a fool not to say that, because if they're still alive, they'll just you know, they'll take it out on you. So
she'll smack me even though she lives 700 miles away.
Yeah. So your mom probably told you, "Hey, honey, don't reach up on that. It's hot. The stove is hot. Don't stick your hand up there." How many times did you do that?
Do it anyway. It's almost like a challenge.
Did you do it more than once?
No.
Yeah, but she told you.
Right.
She probably said it would hurt you, and probably told you not to do it probably more than once, and you just had to
do it
to make sure. You had to call her bluff.
Yeah.
You just had to make sure.
I still have fingerprints on that finger.
So we all want to challenge until we experience it for ourselves, and that's a lot of times a good way to learn.
Yeah.
When it's not so damaging that it could, you know, permanently injure you.
Right.
But, you know, I heard this saying when I was in my early 20s. He said, if you want to go through a minefield, look at the guy across the way and saying, see that size 10 footprint over there? That's mine.
Follow my footprints.
Step in the exact same footprints that I'm doing so that you can meet me on this side and make it through the minefield. And that really is what life is about. That's what this ministry is all about, is that because Brian's so old, and I'm a little older than him.
Learn from our mistakes, ladies and gentlemen.
That is, you know, I've had a good marriage, a bad marriage, a handicapped child, a loss of a child. There's a lot of things that I've been through. And I left the church. I rejoined the church. There's a lot of things that I've been through that can help guide you into not. Look, you're gonna go do stupid things anyway. But if there's someone that's done it and you can go back and say, okay, how did he get out of it? How did he avoid it? How did he, you know, learn from someone else? Because we can't reinvent the mistakes, but we tend to die anyway. Like, you know, like Billy Graham said once, and I heard this when it was still black and white TV. He says, there's not a new sin created by man. We're just repeating the same old sins over and over again, and maybe in different ways. It's the same old sin. Greed, gluttony, all that. Lust. They're the same sins. We just may do it in a different way and with different people.
Right.
So there's nothing really new, and that's why if you can take advice, if you're willing to take some correction or just some suggestions on how to have a better life, then this is what this is all about.
Let's go back to your Major League Baseball player analogy. I thought that was really good because it's like if you're a baseball player, if you're a Little League player and someone from the Dodgers comes up and gives you advice on how to play third base, like Pat said, you're going to listen. Well, why then, when the master of the universe, the creator of everything, tells you how to live your life, why do we think we know better and want to do it our own way?
I think you stumped me.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and I'll tell you why. It's because we're not familiar enough with his writings. Well, not his writings, but the things written about him. We're not familiar enough about his life. We're not familiar enough with how the message has been transferred down for the last 2,000 years and beyond, when you consider the Old Testament as a prelude to what we've learned in the New Testament. And that's why I bring up this Sunday Missal. It's so I did the year in a Bible in a year with Father Mike Schmitz, and what a phenomenal lesson that was. I read the first time I'd ever read the Bible cover to cover, because he reads the Bible on a podcast, and hopefully, if you're smart, you have your Bible out and you're reading right along with him, and you can replay it over and over again. And that's the nice thing about a podcast is it's not one and done, gone forever like old TV before. You remember that before VCRs and all that stuff. So it's one way to immerse yourself, and then he would have a commentary after. He'd sum it all up, try to bring it into modern terms, put it to how it affects our life today. The Sunday Missal is a missal of all the readings for the Mass of that day, of the 20th Sunday in Ordinary Time. The theme was, can we stand correction? And then usually the Old Testament and the Gospel really tie in together the theme. The second reading is usually from the epistles of the New Testament, but sometimes they're close, but they're not part of. They just don't seem to quite dwell. But when you read the narrative prior to, so in the front of every Sunday's reading is the narrative. It talks about the theme and it goes through and puts it in more modern terms. And it helps you when you do that. And then what I try to do is I go in before Mass, half hour already before, sit before the tabernacle in our small chapel, and I'll read the narrative, I'll read the readings, and then I'm a little more prepared. If you're trying to figure out how you get more out of the Mass, this is the best way to do it. And when you're reading not only someone else's perspective, it's not really someone else's in a way that's just their opinion, like this. Right. This is our opinion right now. This is our commentary on what we get out of it. This is someone that's been approved by the church, that's written these out, and it's succinct with the readings. You read the readings, you see how it all ties in. Then you go and hear the readings, you hear the gospel, and then you hear the homily. And the homily should always tie in with the readings of the day. You get far more out of it. And if you want to hear God's voice of correction or guidance, this is one of the best ways to do so.
Man, this shouldn't be any kind of surprise to you. If we're having a weekend cookout, we're going to prepare for that. We're going to have the ice and the drinks and the meat.
No, why would you do that?
We'll have all of that done ahead of time.
Why?
If you go on a hunting trip or a camping trip, you're going to spend a couple of days getting prepared. So why then would you not prepare for Mass by just spending 20, 30 minutes before Mass starts, getting prepared and sticking your nose in a missal, and because I think you get a lot more out of Mass if you sort of know what's coming.
Yeah, I've got a friend, you bring up a good point on preparing for a camping trip. So usually most people go for a weekend, 2-3 days. Now I've got a friend who's got a camp trailer, and the week or two before, he pulls it out, gets it all cleaned up, starts checking, making sure everything works. He will spend 4 or 5 days preparing his camp trailer, make sure they have all the provisions and make sure everything works, the heater, the air conditioner, all the things that, they don't camp in, squalor anymore.
Right.
It's
glamping.
They're old, so they glamp. But he spends so much time preparing for a 2 or 3 day camp out. And I would just grab the trailer and go and, oh crap, I forgot this, or, buy it on the way, or, that's kind of, when you have 3 daughters and a handicapped child, you get their stuff ready, but you always forget about yourself.
Right.
But he would literally spend 4, 5, 6 days getting ready for a 2-day outing because he doesn't want to not have everything he needs. The only problem I have with my friend is that he spends no time on his soul.
Yep.
I mean, he said he believes in God. He calls himself a Christian. But I've seen him spend no time on a Sunday afternoon. In fact, he's a friend, but he mocks my faith all the time. He mocks my faith, and he goes, you Catholics do this, you Catholics. I said, well, how would you know? You've never been. And I tell you what, that shuts him up every time. Yeah. I said, so you really think that? Well, why don't you come?
Come check it out.
Come check it out. So, and then his excuse is, well, I don't like organized religions. And I said, well, it's not very organized.
Yeah, you'd love the Catholic Church.
You'd love the Catholic Church.
It's not very organized.
Because you can go to one parish or another parish, and it's like, oh, they do Mass differently here. Yeah. Well, no, they do the setup differently. The Mass itself is the same, but it's different personalities, different people, different choirs. You may have a Gregorian chant in one or guitar hallelujah, kumbaya in another. So we're not an organized religion in the fact that everybody does exactly the same with the same message and the same priest, as at the robotics. It's all individualistic based on the parish and who the priest is. Our whole parish just changed because we got 2 new priests, and it's last July, and they're both Hispanic. And the other 2, one was Polish and one was Idahoan, and they were totally different, So it changes. And yet this guy spends so much time preparing for campouts, but he's not preparing for the camp out for life, the end of the everlasting life in the future. And I do pray for him. I do hope that he one day might even see this show. But we need to prepare far greater. And really, I think this takes 20 minutes prior to Mass to prepare for the Mass. Most Masses are an hour?
Yeah.
Unless you get a homily that's kind of way out there.
Well, and just think of the great parking spot that you're going to get if you show up to Mass 20, 30 minutes early.
I purposely park far away because I need the exercise, But, it's easy to pull in because I'm going to have coffee and donuts later.
Well, that's true. So if you're the first truck in the parking lot and then the last one to leave afterwards.
Getting out's no problem. There's never a traffic jam at who's turning where and who's crossing over. It's just a piece of cake.
So get early and read, and then stay late and have donuts.
So getting back to correction, how do you handle correction from, say, a boss?
Well, depending on how it's presented, but more often than not, if something's pointed out to me, hey, you made this mistake, next time let's do this.
So, Brian, let's have this done.
and again, it's like, well, yeah, you got me, dead to rights. So yeah, I own that, and I'm sorry, and I will do better next time.
But were you always that way?
Probably not.
Yeah. It is hard, especially when we thought we did what was right.
Yeah.
And then someone says, hey, you shouldn't do that. It kind of humbles you just a bit, maybe even makes your... Yeah, I don't know if anyone's felt this way, but when someone corrects me, all of a sudden the temperature in my body kind of goes up a little. You can just feel that warmth of, you don't know what's going to... if it's anger or just like, oh, shoot, they caught me and I screwed up. Pride. So I'm sure if you really want to admit to being a man and knowing that someone's corrected you and you can feel that little temperature rising, just realize that if you can curb that and listen to what's being said, you may not even have to accept it. But if you temper that and don't lash out, you will save a friendship. You'll save a relationship.
Might save your job.
Might save your job. It'll save your tongue from being bitten, or having to take back words you just can't once they're said.
And I know, guys, we don't want to try to name our emotions, but when something like that happens, what are some things that you feel? You're embarrassed. There might be some shame.
Yeah.
There might be some anger, maybe not at that person, but at yourself.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that are going on there that make that temperature rise, and we have to kind of stop. And even though we don't like to label our emotions, we might want to take some time to do that.
Well,
why am I feeling this, and who should I really be upset with in this situation?
Just so you know, I'm not perfect. I've never expressed perfection. That's why I brought you some peaches today. It's because you stopped judging the fruit on the tree, because they're good fruit I brought.
Delicious.
Delicious. So I brought them peaches fresh off my tree. So I recently had a conflict. I'm a business owner, and I was doing work for someone that wasn't very good at telling me all that they wanted done. They weren't very good at communicating. They just assumed I would figure it out. And every time I thought I was doing what was right, she would say, "No, that's not how I envisioned it." I said, "Well, then please tell me how you envision it so I can do what you want me to do." "Well, I thought you knew what you were doing." I'm going,
I know what I'm doing.
I know what I'm doing.
I don't know what you want me to do for you.
And her attitude was, "Well, I really can't decide until I actually see it."
Ooh.
And I'm going, "Well, I just placed about $1,000 worth of heavy stone for a pathway, and that's not what you envisioned. You never even shared your vision. You said you wanted a pathway, and I showed you pictures." Anyway, so it got me a little teed off. And then on top of that, another customer related to her was wondering what was taking me so long to get to her. And we had bad rainy weather. I'm just setting this. So we had a lot of rain delays because you really can't work in mud.
No,
you can't really do your job right in mud. And we had a lot of rainy weather this spring. And so I got an email saying, "Hey, you promised me this time, and why can't you? Should I just find someone else?" Well, when she said, "Should I just find someone else?" I was kind of ticked, and I clicked back an email that I wished I hadn't sent, and I haven't heard back from her since. And they need to go and apologize to her, because I didn't want to make excuses by saying, "Well, this so-and-so is," didn't want to go through that because it's my business, not her business. I didn't want to blame someone else, but there was a circumstance that I couldn't control that caused my delay, and I did not handle that well. And if you're watching this, I apologize. You know who you are. Anyway, the point I'm making is that sometimes our anger gets the better of us. And you would have thought that if I had typed it out and reread it, and I just typed it out and sent it, if I had taken the time to reread it, I probably would have not sent it at all and just trashed the email and say, "I will get back to you as soon as I can," and just left it at that. But I didn't. And those are things you can't take back. And as a business person, it's not good. It's not good. But so you need to go back and own up to it and correct it if you can. But what I'm saying is that we do let our emotions get in the way, and we do spout off and say things and lash out, and we hurt people, and it takes time to build that trust back up. So, it's an unnecessary correction. I think they handled it wrong too, but they're the customer,
right?
And I should have gone to the one person and said, "Look, can we get this in writing? Can we have a discussion on what your vision is, so we can actually know?" Because she would ask me, I would show up that day, and she said, "Oh, while you're here, can you do this?" And I'm going, "I didn't bring equipment for that because we didn't discuss that." So you're going to find that in life. That's going to happen. A boss, employee, a customer. You've got to learn to handle things better. And taking correction means you've got to handle, even if it's wrong correction, you've got to handle the way you respond to it better.
Yep.
That's why I like Father Larry. Man up, shut up, be a man.
Which has pretty much been the theme of this whole man cave ministry since you envisioned it, 6-7 years ago?
Yeah, I think.
Shut up and be a man.
Well, that's actually how I started listening to Salt and Light Radio. I was kind of guilted into it, like, okay, it's your duty to listen to Catholic Radio. I'm going, I don't want to sit around and listen to people go kumbaya all the time and woe is me, or, the church needs to be better at this, or the church no, you need to be part of the church so you can make it better. But so I listen to politics, and that's what, or sports. So to listen to Salt and Light Radio on the radio is like, I'm a man. I don't need to listen. I don't need that kind of help, And so, but when I was listening to Open Line, and Father Larry had an hour on there once a week, and I heard him talking, and I'd never heard a priest be that bold and be so outspoken about his love for Jesus, his love for the church, his love for God, that he could sit there and say, set the world ablaze.
Yep.
As Christ came down and says in this message, I want to set the world. Why isn't it already on fire?
Right.
I mean, when he was speaking, why isn't it already on fire? Because you guys are doing everything wrong. Why are you not just burning up?
Yeah.
And Father Larry Richards had that tenacity, had that strength of his conviction to be that message sender. And when I heard that, I said, okay, I got a lot to correct in myself. But because I know all these things I got to correct, maybe I can help someone else not do the same stupid things I did. And I have a joyful life now because I have followed Christ, and I've gone back to his church, and I'm committed to God. I'm committed to this ministry. And so I'm asking you to take the correction, hear the words, take a little bit more time out of your busy day preparing for your salvation, your eternal salvation. We out of 168 hours a week, we go to Mass 1 hour. Spend an extra 20, 30 minutes of preparation prior to that Mass so that you get the most bang for your buck. And that way you don't look at it as a waste of time.
Right. Yeah, got to get invested in it. All right. Anything else to add?
Well, have you ever been to a movie, you spent your $18 and a popcorn and all that, and you're going like, whoa, that was a waste of time?
Oh, a lot lately.
Yeah.
A lot lately.
So, you don't want that same feeling coming out of Mass going, well, that was a waste of time. You don't want to leave with that because nothing in a Mass could be a waste of time.
Right.
It's preparing you for salvation and not just salvation, not just something in the future, but it's actually trying to prepare you for your life ahead.
Yeah.
For your, so maybe you won't be as mad at the person who cut you off, on the road, or maybe when your kid hits you in the wrong spot because they're too short and they can't, high five you, you don't get all mad about it. Or maybe when your wife gives you that look and you're like, I don't like that look, and because women are good at looks, it's like they could kill. But that's all I'm saying is that you owe it to yourself, and not only yourself, but your family and those people around you to be the best version of yourself. And I think the only way to do that is preparing for the Mass each week. And this St. Joseph's Sunday Missal, I think they have cheaper versions. Mine's leather bound. It's only like $25 to $35. Well worth the investment. And it's not something it's not a book that will run out of, you'll use it for years and years and years to come. So I take it's in my car all the time. It's the first thing I grab when I go to church. I get there early. I sit in front of the tabernacle and I read the days, that Sunday in ordinary time or Lent or whatever, that theme of the day, and I read those readings in advance. So I'm prepared.
Yeah. If you, with RCIA starting in many parishes and maybe in yours, if you happen to be a sponsor of a candidate or a catechumen and you reach the finish line on Easter Sunday, this would be a great gift for that person that you're sponsoring into the church. It's something that they can use every Sunday.
Yeah.
And help them with prayers and all sorts of different things as they get started on their journey in the Catholic faith. So.
Well, and it's yours.
Right.
It's not like if you happen to show up at Mass at the wrong time or late. That's the wrong time. You're late. But I've got, I don't know if you can see, you can see, I've got these earmarked with colorful, different, little
tabs,
little stick-on tabs on the pages, because I've got fat fingers and I don't flip through these pages, and they're very thin. I mean, these are really thin, light pages, and I don't want to tear it up because I'm cheap, so I don't want to have to buy another one of these until they come out with a new Bible or something.
Right, spoken like a true businessman.
I'm cheap, man. My money's important to me. I'd rather give it away to the church than to have to give it to a bookstore because I ripped another book up. So, so this book is something. Get a good leather-bound one, and it's and it's yours, and you don't have to worry about whether or not there's enough in the back of the church or or you walked into a pew that had none of them, and you're asking, hey, can I get a missal?
Right.
Now they doesn't have the songs in it, so you want to grab a songbook unless you know all of them by heart. But really, you don't. If you're cooking a meal, you're a participant in the meal. If you're barbecuing, you're flipping those burgers. You're the participant. You're the one making that happen, and you wouldn't just go put the burgers on, go sit over and have a beer and think they're just going to flip themselves, right? You're actively involved. So think of the Mass in the same way as something you prepare for a camping trip or your cookout. You're organized, prepared, and when someone sits there and goes, wow, that was a really juicy burger, thank you. You can sit back and say that you did it right, and you could boast a little bit and be a little proud. And when you come out of Mass going, that was a really good homily. Why did you get so much out of the homily? Because you came in prepared.
Yeah. Did your homework.
So that's all I'm saying. It's correction is hard for anyone to take. But if you do it with a sense of, I may learn something from this, it'll be good for me, or it'll help me, or it may even help the person that's correcting you, because they may find some humility in their correction of you, because they might realize that maybe I was doing the same thing.
Right.
I know when I've corrected others, I'm going, oh, stupid. Kind of, calling the kettle black here. It's like, no, so that's, correction is very hard to accept. And the Bible's going to correct you. The Bible's going to lead you and guide you. And the only reason why is because they want your striving for perfection.
All right. Well, that wraps up this edition of Man Cave, and it is a production of Salt and Light Radio. And you're watching the video here on YouTube. You can check out the audio version at saltandlightradio.com. Until next time, for Pat King, I'm Brian Howell. God bless.
God bless.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Man Cave, a weekly podcast discussing the issues that affect Catholic men in today's culture. A production of Salt and Light Radio in Boise, Idaho. To learn more about our ministry, please visit our website, saltandlightradio.com.